Hi everyone, I'm the Tax Pro, and this is part of our 90 Days to Taxes series. We're going to be working through Schedule M-3 today for our Form 1120-S. So as a reminder, Form 1120-S is the S Corporation tax return. Schedule M-3 is also applicable to Form 1120, which is the C Corporation tax return, and Form 1065, which is your partnership tax return. Okay? Now, Schedule M3 is not required for a lot of businesses. It is going to come into play if your business has total assets of $10 million or more. So if you remember, we went through Schedule L, and Schedule L was a balance sheet, right? So it was reconciliation of balance sheet, or your balance sheet to the books. That Schedule L had a space for total assets on it, because a balance sheet shows total assets and then total liabilities and shareholders' equity. If your total assets on that balance sheet are $10 million or more, Schedule M3 is probably going to come into play. Now, not only do we have Schedule L, which has our balance sheet that's going to show our total assets, your total assets also live in a box in the upper right-hand corner of your tax return, right? And Schedule L should match that box, but that box, if it's $10 million or more, you probably need to file Schedule M3. I'm going to show you the instructions here to show you who must file. Oops. So these are the instructions for Schedule M3. This is for corporations, but again, this applies to S corporations, C corporations, and partnerships, okay? Now, this is specifically going to talk about Form 1120 because this is specifically for C corporations, the instructions. These were, I couldn't find for some reason the S corp instructions really quick, but they're the same. Okay, it's the same threshold at that $10 million. So Schedule L right here, balance sheet per books, if total assets at the end of the year equal or exceed $10 million, you must file Schedule M3 instead of Schedule M1, okay? Schedule M1, if you remember, it was pretty short, right? Schedule M3 is like a beefed up version of Schedule M1. It is going to provide a lot more information. So we have three parts here. And I'm not going to walk you through each section in depth because if you're to the point to where you have $10 million of assets on your books, you should be working with a tax accountant, okay? That's going to be your best bet. So I'll walk you through briefly Schedule M3, but I am not going to spend a ton of time on it just because I think that the majority of you that are doing it yourself are not going to have to file this schedule. And if you are doing it yourself and you have to file the schedule, I would really, really strongly suggest maybe reevaluating that decision. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying I would maybe reevaluate it. Okay, so we have three different parts here. Part one is going to give the IRS some information about your business. Okay, so this is like questionnaire area. It's gonna want information about your financials. How do you keep your financials? Do you have any restatements that occurred on financial statements in recent years? And then we are going to go to part two. This is where we are going to reconcile the income items, okay? So this is all the revenue items. And you're going to see it has a couple columns. So you're going to have it per the income statement. So this is per the books, okay? The income statement that you pulled from your books. And then it's going to have a column for temporary differences, a column for permanent differences, and then a column for the tax return. So essentially it's saying, okay, cool. Where are you starting at on your books? Give us some information on whether or not these differences are temporary or permanent, if there are differences. And then let's make sure that those differences reconcile between the two, right? They're truly the difference between the books and the tax return. Again, these schedules are designed to catch mistakes. So then part three is for expense or deduction items. Okay, same thing, those four columns. Now, why would your books be different than your tax return? And what is the deal with the temporary and permanent differences? Books are going to be different because the financials that you actually keep on a book basis, there are going to be items on there that are not taxable, there are going to be items on there that are recognized or potentially recorded differently than what is permitted by the Internal Revenue Code. There's going to be items that are not deductible. So for example, there's some, tax-exempt interest. And so you may have tax-exempt interest income on your books, but you don't have to pick that up on your tax return. So that would be a permanent difference. Okay, that's a permanent difference. You're never going to pick up that income on your tax return because it's tax exempt, that interest income. Okay? Likewise, you have some deductions that are either permanent or temporary. A good example of a permanent difference would be entertainment. So entertainment is not tax deductible any longer. Okay? Entertainment's not tax deductible. There's, if you're in the business of providing entertainment and, maybe you throw parties or something along those lines, and so you pay for a DJ or something, that's a little bit different because you're providing a service and that's like a direct cost of providing that service. You're hiring that DJ for that party that you've been paid to, coordinate. But if you're taking potential clients out to sporting games, for example, that's not deductible. And that's a permanent difference. You're never going to be able to deduct that particular expense. So it is a permanent difference between the books and the tax return. Now, an example of a temporary difference, because this kind of confuses people, would be depreciation. So when we have GAAP financials or financials that are prepared by generally accepted accounting principles, there are specific ways that we depreciate assets. And we are certainly not taking bonus depreciation on those assets. Okay? We have specific ways that we need to depreciate those assets. And that depreciation doesn't always line up with the tax return, okay? So when you have companies that follow GAAP, you're looking at companies like all publicly traded large companies in the U.S. They're going to follow GAAP. You'll see companies that are following IFRS, which is international standards. And then there are certain standards for government entities. And they have to depreciate assets a specific way, in specific methods. And they can potentially take different types of depreciation through their tax return at different rates. And so, for example, we may have a company that keeps their books on the GAAP basis, and so they're depreciating this property over so many years, and they have a depreciation schedule that they take on the books. And then from a tax perspective, maybe they claimed accelerated depreciation and they depreciated 100% of that asset in the first year. They have a book to tax difference. However, eventually this asset, the depreciation on the books, will catch up because the tax depreciation stops after that first year. 100% has been taken, you can't take more. On the books, on the other hand, they'll continue to take depreciation until they get down to zero. And so that's a temporary difference. It's not a permanent difference. So you will have potentially both temporary and permanent differences depending on your practices. There's a lot of small companies that keep their books on a tax basis to kind of limit those differences. But I have seen some small companies where they have specific contracts that require them to follow GAAP accounting. And so because they're following GAAP accounting, they have these temporary differences, book to tax differences. So that's Schedule M3. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know I went through that fast since the majority of you will not be filing it. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.